He is our last speaker of the day, and he's pumped. He's an experienced executive company director with a background in specialised manufacturing, medical devices and consumer products, all focused on international markets. He's held directorships in New Zealand and American companies, the founding shareholder of Foot Science International, which are producers of a name you will know, Formthotics, still actively involved as Director of Export Sales. David Boyd.
Thank you. Yes. You should save that. We don't know yet. Congratulations. You've survived more than just the day. You've listened to some pretty amazing speakers, and now you've got me. But you've also contributed so much, so already we've demonstrated collaboration. We haven't just talked about it. I want to just spend a few minutes now at the end of the day doing sort of I've got two goals. One is to try and make you think a little bit differently about collaboration. And I'm just going to give you a very easy example of a project that I've been involved with for the last couple of years. And my second goal is not to get between you and the bar. So we're keeping an eye on the clock. This one, you may have actually already seen a program that was on TV3 last year about Adam Hall. And we're just going to look at a little bit of what we did with a group of companies in Christchurch with Adam. The importance of what we did is actually, though, a commercial one. And while it was very good for Adam, it's been more important for the companies. Very, very small companies, so there are no large companies involved in this one. That hasn't stopped us. I think that collaboration isn't natural. It's not easy. We generally tend to compete against each other, and we don't find it easy naturally to work together. And what we've found you really need, the most important thing, is to have something that unifies you. You've got to have a very clear, single objective. And in this case, it's this young man, Adam Hall. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on telling you about that because I'm about to show you a little clip from TV3, and they can tell you some of the story if you haven't met him. Adam Hall, though, is New Zealand's most successful international skier. He happens to be termed disabled. I'm not quite sure what that disability really is. You'd be a very brave person to get between Adam Hall and whatever he's decided he's going to do. We put a group of companies together to look at the things that might be impediments to Adam going to the next Olympics. My own company, Foot Science, was in there, Precision Physiotherapy. Vanessa Trent is the owner of the company there, a very, very smart physio. Iran's Medical, you may have heard of Iran's recently. They've got two companies, Iran's Medical, and Iran's Geo. And Geo were in the High Tech Awards the other day. Basically, they're a bunch of the cleverest mathematicians that you're ever going to find. And from that, they are working through commercializing some of their products. And a lot of them are to do with analyzing cloud point data. So if you scan something, you end up with a bunch of cloud points. These are the guys that have figured out what to do with those. Their algorithm helped to land the Mars lander. So they're clever. Dynamic composites, carbon fibre. There's no one smarter in New Zealand, in my opinion, with regard to carbon fibre than Dynamic Composites. These are the people behind Sarah Ulmer's bike when she won all the medals, Hayden Rolston's bike, Alison Shanks. They did all the carbon fibre work, unfortunately, for Larry Ellison. They were also the guys who were doing that amazing thing with the Martin jetpack. Christchurch Radiology Group, very, very important to us in this one. And, of course, the School of Engineering at UC.
This is a story about endeavour, tenacious endeavour, then sadness, then kindness saving the day. Adam Hall is a gold medal winning Winter Paralympian. Born with spina bifida, he's an inspirationally determined athlete who's reached the top in his field, but he needed help. And when two of the people who'd helped him most both died, things were looking pretty grim until Ashley Tulloch with some true Olympic spirit.
And Adam Hall from Auckland is on his way.
She would never tell me that I couldn't do it. She would always be there to support me in any way possible.
And Hall has got a couple of seconds to play with here.
Someone said that your son can't do this. She would obviously be down their throat saying, whatever, watch this type thing.
No, Adam Hall has probably slid out of contention. Right.
Without her never give up, die attitude, you know, I wouldn't be the person that I am today.
But he still wins it! Unbelievable!
Adam Hall, born with spina bifida. A remarkable life driven by two women. Gilly Hall, his mentor, who died of cancer 6 months before this race in 2010, and his mum, there in Vancouver to witness his heroic victory.
You train for one moment to go to the Olympics, you win a gold medal, and you come home, you spend great family time after the Olympics. We went back to Winter Park where I trained. Then to come home and within a week, basically to be told that, you know, from being to the absolute high to the absolute low is something that you can't wish upon anybody.
But the death of Adam's mum, Gail, and his mentor, Gilly, would see some people in Adam's life become much more important. Adam didn't know it then, but his mum's funeral would change his life forever.
What I wanted to do was to form a cluster around him, to provide him with the latest science and technology and health science as well.
Tony and I were standing in the car park talking with a number of others, and Tony, as he often does, just quietly sort of said, you know, somebody's really going to have to provide some support for this young man. You know, would you help? And so for me, that was an obvious answer. So the whole process started really.
And this was the beginning of the Brains Trust.
The initial steps were really just to ascertain, well, what does he need? You know, what can we do? We didn't have a fixed idea. It was really just a case of saying, okay, we're there to help Adam. What does Adam need?
G'day, how's it going? Hi Adam, how's things? Yeah, good, thanks. Good to see you. Come on.
What he needed was ankle-foot orthoses that were better suited to this world #1's active lifestyle, and what they needed was an accurate picture of his current physical state.
It's almost like spray painting where you move the gun over the leg as David is doing now, and it's building up in real time the three-dimensional shape of the leg or the object that is being passed over. So David contacted us and said, I've got Adam, we'd like to be able to scan his legs and improve the fitting of his orthotics, so we were delighted to be able to assist.
With a 3D picture of the outside of Adam's lower body, they then needed to see the skeletal structure. The images from the CT scanner combined with the 3D imagery to make a virtual model of Adam's leg. It's here in this multi-million-dollar factory that the virtual model is put to use, creating a solid replica of Adam's leg in order to make a new ankle-foot orthosis.
But what about all the different prototypes that you've been making? The cost must be adding up because you guys aren't being paid for this, are you?
No. Well, we are being paid, I believe, but not in terms of cash. One of the paybacks for our business is that it actually stretches us in what we're doing. But to be honest, we would do this you know, just because it's good fun.
Here's Adam, that's in Vancouver.
Part of the ever-growing team is Brains Trust physio Vanessa Trent, who oversees all the changes to ensure his physical well-being is not being jeopardised.
We're just trying to make him pretty much more aligned. It's like the carrot we dangle is your performance will improve.
This is just, remember last time how we were fighting to even get it in? It was all twisted. Now it just goes straight in.
Once the new orthoses are ready, Scott and Adam train.
We test it out. We might put it on 2, 3, 4 times every day, take it off, make small adjustments, go back out, ski it again, take it off, make notes on what we're doing, and make the tweaks to it. And when we think we've got it right, we send it back to the Brain Trust, and they make it permanent.
Over the last 16 months, they've spent between $70,000 and $100,000 on the project, excluding the cost of everyone's time. So financial support is crucial.
But yes, there are some private donors involved in this, but that's what we like to do.
But their focus isn't just on Adam the athlete. The Brains Trust is about improving Adam's life, and already a lot has changed. He walks straighter and he stands 3 centimetres taller.
You know, my partner and I just went camping one day, took a bike, and there was like a circle around a fire at night, and I basically told myself I wasn't going to go to bed until I was able to do a full loop without falling over, because I would just get up and I would fall over, and I always had this struggle where I could only get so far when I would pedal, but with the muscles and the training that I've been able to do, you know, I've been able to get stronger, so I was able to get round and round. And it put such a huge smile on my face, and it was like being a kid again for me. It was pretty hilarious, but to be able to do that was pretty cool.
Adam chases winter. Next month they'll head back to Colorado to train at Winter Park.
You know, if I work my butt off, the results will come to me. I don't need to chase any results. If I leave absolutely everything that I possibly can up on that mountain, then we'll be rewarded with whatever that is that we deserve. So long as I, you know, keep on going with no stone unturned, you know, we'll come home with more than 1 medal.
Having had his most successful season to date, winning 4 World Cups, Adam's sights are firmly set on gold in Russia 2014.
The support that I've had over the last couple of years since Mum's accident, you know, not just from family and friends, but from the whole community of New Zealand. You know, the next 4 years is surely it's, you know, I'm doing what I'm doing, but it's for me, it's more payback to show my respect and the appreciation that I have for the whole country, and it's for my mum, it's for my family, and for the rest of the country.
Adam Hall talking to Ashley Tulloch.
Right, the first thing, this is not a sob story. We're actually using him. You know, he's a tough bastard, and what he's giving us is a reason to work together. It gave us a common goal, and of course, whenever you think you're having a tough day, I want to give you a little bit of an idea of what we actually have done, because that's TV. We start at the beginning, it's just like a business. This guy's the best in the world, and so we have to be at least as good as that. My job, because he's world ranked under the New Zealand system, of course, he is part of New Zealand's high performance unit with the, from Spark funding, your tax dollars, going into funding our elite athletes. So our job was to think of the things that they don't. We had to fill in the gaps around him. So my job at the beginning was simply to assess and review Adam, look at his equipment in particular, and see what we could do or think of things that might change that. His normal ski equipment, you'll have noticed he has normal skis and boots. He then has a set of what we call outriggers. They're basically elbow crutches with a little pivoting ski tip on the bottom. That was the first problem. I was involved in coaching disabled sport 30 years ago. I was 10 years old. And my problem when I saw his outriggers 2 years ago was that they were exactly the same as the ones that I'd used when I was coaching 30 years ago. Nothing stays the same for 30 years, so that obviously meant there was a problem. That was actually quite interesting. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the outriggers because that was actually really simple. And the cool thing was that Milton, with Dynamic Composites, built him this amazing set of carbon fibre outriggers. And they just look amazing. I don't need any, and I want some, you know. You've got to have a set. And the great thing is they're very visible. So everybody, all his competitors, have been looking at his carbon fibre outriggers for the last 2 years, going, oh, that's what the difference is. That's great, because the real difference is what we've been doing with the AFOs. And the other thing is that we deliberately waited. We did the Mark I outriggers 2 northern winters ago. We've deliberately waited for 2 winters, knowing that we had a better design, and we've just completed that this week. And he will quietly be using them on the hill. If you see him out there this winter in New Zealand, have a look. But the real story is about these AFOs, ankle-foot orthoses. You've got to remember, this guy is actually a paraplegic. If he had been a good boy and listened to his doctors when he was 3 or 4 years old, and particularly his outrageous mother, he would have spent his life in a wheelchair. So Adam, as you can see, is a pretty big bloke. Down until he gets to about here. So he has virtually no sensation starts running out about here. By the time you get to the knee, then I can put my sort of fingers around his calves like this. So he has no muscles that are firing, no nerves below the knee. That's a problem when you want to walk. It's a particular problem when you want to stand. So what he learned as a child was to throw his knees together to sort of brace himself, and then because you've got no muscles to keep your feet in, his feet actually turn out like this and then collapse inwardly. We have a competition, by the way, that Adam judges as to who can actually walk like Adam. So I'm in 3rd place. But when to be able to walk, you actually have to have muscles and nerves that will fire those muscles to lift your foot so that you don't fall over every time you try to pull your foot through. Adam can't do that. So he wears a splint, which is moulded, around the back of his leg, runs underneath his foot, and it holds your foot up so that you can actually then swing through. So those things were built traditionally by the orthotic departments in the hospitals. And those guys are fantastic in those departments, but actually all they do is they make a device that actually supports the deformity. So it ensures that you, in Adam's case, have to stand badly. And then he used those in his ski boots. And the orthotic departments don't know anything about skiing, so we can't blame them for making something that doesn't actually work in a ski boot. So my job was to put a team around that. As I say, we approached it very much like a business. We put a strategic plan around that and 90-day action plans. And then we go for it. We don't worry about getting it perfect. Every 90 days, we had another idea. And as you'll see, we made some really classic mistakes along the way. I've mentioned how the outriggers are very visible. The AFOs are our hidden advantage because no one sees them. And what I looked at the beginning was this is not rocket science. You've got a guy that's standing like this, and when you put a pair of skis on him, they're great big long 2-metre levers that you then pull in like this. It doesn't work. So what I was looking at was just simply saying, what if we forget that he's disabled and we'll make him stand like this? Because that's the way his body was designed. He's still got a knee and a lower leg and an ankle joint, subtalar joint, the same as you and I. And those things are designed to work when we're in this position. So my job was to try and get him into this position. Very quickly, the process for making traditional AFOs hasn't changed since World War II. Essentially, they put you in a chair like this and put a little stool up. obviously no socks or shoes on. They take a plaster bandage, wrap it around your leg and foot, and when it's set, they then cut it down the front and peel that off like a boot, plaster it up, and then they pour plaster inside of that to create a plug or a male mould. When that sets, they'll peel the bandages off and you're left with a plaster mould of his leg. When I sit like this, there's a slight technical hitch and difference to when I ski. One, the angle of my ankle doesn't match a ski boot. So in actual fact, they were casting him in this position. And every ski boot I've ever seen is somewhere about here. So there were a few problems with that. Then I learnt that what they do is take that plaster plug and they vacuum form a thermoplastic onto it and create a plastic mould. And much to my horror, when I went in to the guys and said, hey, listen, it was really good, but could you take that plaster mould and bandsaw it through the ankle for me and just change the angle so that he's up here and then do another mould? And they said, bit of a problem there. To get the plastic off, we have to destroy the plaster. Oh, Christ. So I've got this skier who's training up on the mountain, and every time I want to try a new idea, I've got to get him back and wrap plaster around his leg. It obviously wasn't going to work. So that was why we went to Iran's and created that 3D model. And the idea was pretty simple: scan the outside of his leg, create a 3D image, stick it on the computer, and get some clever people, cleverer than me, to actually then manipulate that 3D model and then use that to make a plug. You know, in our case, we would just mill it and use that as the mould. We got about sort of 2/3 the way through that process when I finally realised how stupid I was. That what I was doing was standing there in front of the computer screen with the model and saying to the guys, listen, can you take him now, change that angle so it lines up with the ski boot? Yep. Now I want you to take his foot and rotate it in like this and then lift it this way for me. And when I do that with my foot, of course, my tibia rotates. So his knee used to face sort of out there somewhere. And I said, just pull it round and straighten it up. And at about that point, I realised that, of course, we were doing things that the human body wasn't necessarily capable of. And certainly the changes that we were making weren't necessarily where Adam's ankle, leg, knee wanted to bend. So we made another phone call to Christchurch Radiology, and that was an interesting one because they're not used to this sort of thing. So I was fortunate enough to know one of the radiologists, and I said, Andrew, you know those really, really expensive CT scanners you've got? Yep. You must get some spare time, some downtime on those things. Yeah, usually not during daylight. That's all right, we can come round in the dark. And they were fantastic. They were quite amazing. So Christchurch Radiology just opened the doors. They had a whole team of people there, and within a very short period of time, we had then run them through a CT scanner, which enables us to then tell them to get rid of all that sloppy soft tissue rubbish and leave us with the bones. That gives us a three-dimensional model of the bone structure. So now we can take the 3D model of the bones and match that with the external scan that we had and build virtual Adam. So virtual Adam is the exciting part to this, because as we went along, we found that we could build a predictive model. So we now have a 3D model that's anatomically correct, which I can actually go to with the guys, and as we sort of work through this, from this data from the CT scan, I can then take that on the screen and say, take his foot, tip it over like this for me, and put it to here, and I can actually watch the tibia rotate at the same time. So we know what's going to happen to his knee. The end result of all this is all fairly simple stuff that you've seen. But the difference is, what we've got there is, this one on the left was the Mark I that the orthotic department did. Now, if I drop the line down from there to here, versus this was Mark IV, and by this stage we'd come into here, we'd actually moved the ankle 65 millimetres across here. Adam is now 40 millimetres taller than he was 18 months ago. Probably the funniest thing I've seen out of this, though, was that because we changed so much, the coolest thing out of it all is he can wear cowboy boots. He's never been able to wear anything but sort of outdoor hiking boots before because it was kind of tricky getting that big thing into them. And this guy, that photograph was taken the last Northern Winter in a Super G race. And I've got GoPro footage of this. It is absolutely outstanding. The guy was skiing at 140 kilometres an hour, through a course. And this, the guy is a paraplegic. He should just, he should calm down. Anyway, as you can tell, it's the last line is probably the most important. It's been really good fun, but along the way, it's really shown us a hell of a lot about collaboration. And it is a serious business story because each of those companies has come through it saying, this is different. We could actually do this with other stuff. Dynamic Composites, I can honestly say, is now a business. 2 years ago, it was a really clever shed, but it wasn't a business. He really has changed. So that common unifying goal is all important, and I suggest that it doesn't always need to be something that's part of your everyday business. Thank you.